In my past life, my wife died in a car accident. I paid off her massive debts, supported her parents, and worked myself into an early grave. On my deathbed, I saw her living the good life with her lover, her kids running happily around. They returned to claim my hard-earned wealth. When I woke up again, I sent her straight to the crematorium. If she wanted to die, then just die for real. The ICU was filled with the blaring sound of the heart monitor. In my last moments, I saw my wife, Tina, who should have died 6 years ago. She was finally dead. Tina's hand trembled wildly on the oxygen tube, her face twisted with emotion. Leaving the ward, she rushed into a man's arms, taking a 5 or 6-year-old boy away with her. One moment I was drowning in wet, soggy hatred and pain. The next moment, I blinked, and I was back at the company where I had spent 6 long years. Idiot. Eric threw a file I had just organized right in my face. The hard corner jabbed my skin, snapping me awake. The man's face made my eyes widen, rage suddenly bursting from my chest. His face looked exactly like the man my wife fell into the arms of. You can't even do this right. Eric kept rambling on, but I couldn't hear any of it. With a hot head and clenched fists, I punched him in the head. In my last life, I had worked tirelessly to build a successful business, only for him to steal away my wife and family life. Thinking about it made my anger grow stronger. Both of us were shocked by my actions, taking a while to react. Eric's shrill screams pounded in my ears. Mike rushed up, grabbing my hand. Ben, are you crazy? But the hatred from 2 lifetimes couldn't be stopped by him. If you think you can, then you do it. I grabbed Eric's arm and twisted it hard. The bone made a dislocating sound. Ah, Ben. As he tried to speak, I stuffed his tie in his mouth. He whimpered in pain, unable to move. Mike, seeing things getting out of hand, tried to pull me away with all his strength. Don't you want to keep your job? He was disappointed, speaking with a tone of frustration. Eric was our boss, bullying the weak and avoiding responsibility, earning everyone's scorn. I had no idea when he hooked up with Tina. Chairs scattered and clattered, alerting co-workers outside. Hearing footsteps, I let go. Next time, think before you talk to me. I kicked him hard in the face twice for good measure. As I closed the conference room door, Mike gave me a thumbs up. You really laid into him. Aren't you scared of revenge? He grinned. Not a trace of the peacemaker from moments earlier left. In my past life, they conspired against me, leaving me to die there with my oxygen tube pulled. I only realized how foolish I had been in my final moments. She had both a son and a daughter, yet still wished for my early death to inherit everything from me. Thinking of that past made me shiver with cold dread. If we're going down, then we'll all go down together in this life. I ignored his words, speaking my thoughts aloud, my anger still simmering with resentment. The company's new layoff list had us both on it. As I told him, he stood frozen. After a few seconds, damn that bastard. In the afternoon, someone reported me to the police, accusing me of intentional assault. When the police came to investigate, Eric exploded. Mike, you were in the conference room. Dare to lie to them. He clutched his swollen cheek and raged, eyes bulging. Mike, inside the room, cluelessly faced the officers. I don't know what he's talking about. Eric, if you want me to lie in your favor, at least give me a heads up. He mumbled just loud enough for the serious officers nearby to hear. You. Eric clenched his fists, itching to attack. Mike raised a hand to block, but the officers stepped in, frowning. You want this resolved or not? Then he stood still, stepping aside. I locked eyes with one of the officers, speaking softly. Check the surveillance. The evidence is clear. If I have to be arrested, so be it. I'm not looking to be framed for settling personal scores. I was angry, mocking Eric with a sarcastic smile. The message was clear. Eric had passed off a recent successful project to his cronies, leaving me with trivial tasks, saying it was to train newcomers. I wasn't happy and argued a bit back. Everyone knew about it. Hearing about checking surveillance, the officers nodded, and Eric held his breathing, clearly nervous. This only solidified the speculation everyone had. We all headed to the surveillance room together. A coworker there nervously glanced at Eric, sheepishly murmuring, "Seems like it's broken." At that, we started to leave. Suddenly, I shouted out, "Broken? Let me take a look." Not waiting for a response, I stepped forward, and within moments, I had the surveillance up and running. That's when my wife, Tina, arrived, quickly pulling me aside. "Do you know how this affects the police investigation?" She scolded me in a low voice, looking apologetically at the officers, showing no concern for the fact that her husband needed to clear his name. In my previous life, I was just the classic pushover husband. Whatever she said was right. To keep them unaware of my sudden change, I nodded, playing along timidly. She always jumped in at crucial moments to scold me, as if proving I was guilty. Ignoring her, I focused on the monitor which buzzed to life. An officer took over the mouse, glaring at the coworker in the room. "Ben, are you ignoring me now?" Seeing the monitor working, her face flushed, and she yelled at me, pointing a finger. Colleagues around us eyed her strangely, prompting her to awkwardly lower her hand. Turns out, the morning's conference room footage was indeed missing, but when the officer found the last bit of video, it left everyone uneasy. In the footage, Eric was moving close to a girl with long hair, giving a sleazy smile. The girl, looking shy, said, "Eric, this isn't right." As she spoke, she playfully pushed Eric away, hooking her pinky finger on his shirt, making his heart race. In a rush, he pinned her down on the conference table and kissed her. The girl lifted her long, slender legs, teasingly brushing against his waist. Eric was clearly losing control. A pair of greasy hands reached towards the girl's skirt hem. Cough, cough. One of the officers overseeing the case couldn't endure it any longer and coughed to get everyone's attention. The people snapped back to reality. In the video, the girl also shyly pushed him away. "What are you thinking? There are cameras." Hearing this, Eric got up slowly, straightened out his clothes, and left. Not long after, the video footage from that room stopped working. That video sure broke at the perfect time. A burst of ridicule followed. The girl in the video, intern Ava, blushed and ran away. Mike's face turned dark. I remember when he first joined. He did everything to please her, but didn't even get a smile. After all the time fawning over his goddess, she turned out to be so wild behind the scenes. If she found someone better than him, he might have been able to accept it. But this? What a piece of work. If she knew Mike's true background, she'd probably regret it deeply. I held back my laughter and patted his shoulder, and in a bit he was over it. Unlike my wife, who stood there like she got struck by lightning, not moving at all. Because there were no witnesses and no evidence, the whole thing was just dropped. Mike and I politely escorted the officers away. "Hey, when did you learn to fix cameras, buddy?" "Impressive." A mysterious smile played on my lips. "It's not that I fix cameras, I fix people." I knew the conference room cameras weren't broken. They were just switched off. But since it didn't involve me, I didn't dig further. This whole thing came and went quickly. The only marks left were the scars on Eric and what happened with my wife. Nobody caused trouble, so I got off work early that day. My wife was on a phone call, probably still angry. She didn't even hear me unlock the door. "Ava, what's up with you? You better make things clear today. What do you take me for? Do you not love me anymore?" Whatever came from the other end. Soon she nodded shyly and repeatedly said, "Okay." Before hanging up, she made sure to give some advice. I stood at the door, exaggerating the sound of closing it, and only then did Tina realize I was home and quickly ended the call. When I came in, her expression instantly changed. "Are you deaf when I talk to you? Showing off your skills?" "Huh?" I stayed silent, and her rant continued endlessly. I've always been seen as the honest type. We hadn't slept together for a long time. That night I tossed and turned in bed for a long time. My phone screen went dark and lit up again. Finally, April 22nd turned into the 23rd. Only then did I fall into a deep, peaceful sleep. Early the next morning, I glanced at the car keys on the shoe rack. Sure enough, she had gone out. I cleaned the house and went out to buy groceries, running into Nosy Lucy from the neighborhood. We chatted for quite a while. Ben, it's about time you guys had a kid. Do it while your mom can still help. I smiled and nodded repeatedly. Suddenly, my phone rang. Hello, is this Ben? Your wife had a car accident. Can you come over, please? The voice was loud, and my face turned white. I froze, almost losing my balance. Luckily, Lucy caught me. I threw down the groceries and quickly caught a cab to the hospital. I was a bit curious about my handiwork. Tina was hurt pretty badly, her face, arms, and legs all bruised, her right foot in a cast, lying in bed. But her sharp tongue was unaffected. Where were you? You just got here? What happened? I ignored her and turned to ask the traffic officer. Your wife was in a serious car accident. I glanced at her. It was serious, but not as bad as I hoped. In our last life, she faked her death. This time, I really wanted her dead. I hid the fleeting hatred in my eyes and nodded. Handle it as you should. Was anyone else injured? I asked, worried. No. Tina screamed, and both the officer and I looked over, confused. We're not filing a report. She was adamant. Ben, are you not listening to me? No cops involved, it's just a car. We'll get another. This is life-threatening, we advise a rational approach. I'm not taking your advice. As he tried to speak again, Tina, with her one good arm, hurled a pillow at him. Frustrated, the officer turned to leave. I quickly tried to calm her. It's okay. We won't report it. Don't let it upset you while you're hurt. Using the excuse of fees, I left. In the next ward over, Eric wasn't doing well either. Wrapped up like a mummy and moaning endlessly. I pretended not to hear that they were together and walked straight to the billing desk. Eric had a wife and his family was pretty influential. They were likely arguing and talking divorce now. If his infidelity during the marriage were confirmed, he'd get nothing. Compared to that, what's a car? And they didn't pay for it anyway, so they could easily refuse to involve the police. Unlike what I was doing for Tina, taking care of every detail, Eric kept his hospital stay a secret, staying put despite his injuries. Even his leave was filed under an out-of-town trip. I poured the $20 chicken soup I'd ordered into an insulated container for Tina. Passing Eric's room, I saw him hopping painfully back to his bed. I couldn't resist a hint of kindness and sent Lucy a picture. Is this Eric? Why is he in the hospital alone? Doesn't his wife care? Juicy gossip always tickles the curiosity of neighborhood ladies, and soon everyone in the neighborhood knew. Eric must have done something shady. Otherwise, who wouldn't tell their wife if they got hurt this bad? We lived in the same neighborhood. His mother-in-law, Lily, obsessed with saving face, couldn't even handle a divorce quietly. Now she was urging her daughter to make a big show out of visiting him in the hospital. Eric, raising his casted hand to scratch what he couldn't reach, found himself caught right in his mother-in-law's eyes as she arrived with bags in hand. Eric, what's going on? You're seriously hurt and didn't even tell your family. Lily, with her curly hair, was in tears. Anyone could see she'd make a great mother-in-law. But Eric's wife was totally different. She walked into the hospital room with a sour face, laid back on the bed like she owned the place, and kept messing around on her phone. Eric awkwardly sat on the chair. Mom, it's nothing, he said. Nothing? What happened? Did you mess with some girl and got beaten up? She didn't miss a chance to spit out, serves you right. Hearing this, Eric's face changed instantly. No, I didn't, he stated firmly. I, standing in the corner, pretended to make a phone call at the nurse's station. Relatives for patient in bed 16 have arrived. Poor guy, hurt so bad and his wife is still yelling. Hope he doesn't get so worked up that something bad happens. A young nurse looked up at me, then went back to whatever she was writing. But after a few times, she couldn't hold back anymore, and carrying a medical record, headed for the room. She took a few steps before she frowned and went into the room with a stern face. Relatives of the patient in bed 16, your family member was in a serious accident on the highway. He needs to rest and recover from multiple injuries. I thought maybe this would make the wife feel sorry. But instead, Lily exploded. You told me you were going fishing and ended up on the highway? She yelled. Ignoring her mother's attempts to calm her down, she jumped up and started hitting Eric. Think you can fool me? Once the paperwork's through, you'll see how I deal with you. This ain't over. She climbed on top of Eric and started hitting him, making his injuries even worse. His face turned red, struggling to breathe. Hey, no, Eric pleaded, let's talk this out. Both Lily and the nurse didn't expect this and stood there stunned before jumping in to pull them apart, scared she'd hurt him even more. The nurse worried about injuries. Lily worried about her daughter getting into trouble. As they got her off him, she still managed to kick him a couple of times for good measure. With things almost sorted out, I headed home with some cheap apples, humming a tune, planning to make a fruit plate for my wife. After a few days, with no sign of her willing to fend for herself, I had to gently mention, honey, we've been spending a lot lately. Maybe I should call my mom to look after you for a bit. I can drive some Uber after work to make up for it. At the mention of my mom, her face turned dark. Unlike my mild-mannered nature, my mom is a ticking time bomb. Tina dared not risk that. Why call your mom? She's got work. Maybe we can call mine, she just quit recently and is free now. I rolled my eyes but kept quiet. It wasn't quitting, more like getting the axe and marching orders. Just give her a bit of money. Can't have her working for free. I nodded quickly. My brother-in-laws just bought a house, so they're tight on cash. She called her mom and offered the gig. When her mom heard about tending to the patient, she quickly claimed her old back problems came back. I pretended to run out of water in the kitchen as Tina whispered into the phone. Of course, I wouldn't make you work for nothing. Her mom's complaints stopped instantly. I smirked, walking down the hallway. How did I never notice how much drama this family had before? Her mom arrived faster than you'd think. Despite being in the sticks, which I visited, she managed the 2-hour train, another 2 hours by bus, and a bit of a hike. Mom, you're here. I put down what I was doing to greet her, but she barely looked at me before heading straight to Tina. Oh my, what happened to you? Sweetheart? She moaned. How's it supposed to end for my good daughter with you watching over her? Before I could explain, she was on me like a tornado, accusing me left and right. You're useless. What do we even have you around for? Just leave. Looking at you makes me sick. I stood there, silent, feeling scolded like a child. The old woman in the shared room couldn't take it. Arm in a sling, she lounged on the bed and threw in sarcastic jabs. Wonder where your daughter ran off? Car wreck and no one called the cops? If I had such a daughter, better off dead. Probably with some shady guy. So much for teaching her right. Poor son-in-law. Despite her obvious frustration, Wendy couldn't stand being insulted and went ballistic. She threw the bag on the bed, rolled up her sleeves, ready to throw down. Unlike city ladies who are all passive-aggressive, she comes directly from the school of hard knocks. Seeing her murderous look, I quickly faked pain, calling for a nurse. I motioned to de-escalate. Mom, let it go, let it go. She slapped me hard. Are you a man or not? Let strangers talk about your wife like that? I felt anger rising, but kept my face straight. Calm down, I'll go get some food. Getting out of the room to grab lunch gave me a chance to clear my head in the cold air. I whipped out my phone and shot off a text message. You want to play games? I'll play till you're done for. Wendy and the old woman continued to clash, but no major incidents happened. Unexpectedly, it wasn't long before the old lady was ready to leave. We finally had ourselves a VIP suite. Before leaving, she hesitated and gave me a warning. Be careful. I chuckled, nodding like a fool. In my past life, I'd have laughed off her concerns. Time changes people. Everything was calm on our side, but over at Eric's, it was chaos. Lily had found some evidence, making their already shaky marriage even worse. Eric, recovering quite well, was on his knees in front of Lily, swearing on everything that he'd never done anything to hurt her, that it was all just rumors. Eric's family is still stuck in this whole divorce drama. Tina suddenly forgot any pain she had and jumped out of bed to see what was going on. She couldn't see much from where she was, blocked by the crowd. Just as she was about to cuss someone out, I casually moved a little, and bam, she was right in Lily's line of sight. I told her I was heading to the restroom. She rolled her eyes and told me to grab some snacks on the way back because she was hungry. Then she went back to watching the drama unfold. I just smirked and said sure. I stepped out and ordered some takeout. I mean, why miss out on all the excitement? Lily was just about to let the whole thing go. But then she saw a face on her phone that matched someone from the video. Her mood swung back to furious in a heartbeat. Before I could even think of finding her, Lily grabbed Tina by the hair and dragged her into the hospital room, making Tina scream her head off. Too late to run now. Unlike the spacious VIP room we had, this one was packed with people, and now even more so. Tina stumbled and fell, knocking over a trash can, spilling all the gross stuff inside it, and landed right on top of the mess. Everyone looked queasy, but Lily didn't care and grabbed an empty trash can, hitting her over the head with it repeatedly. When everybody initially got to the hospital, there were whispers about those two having some kind of relation. But then their families showed up acting like strangers, so people cooled on the idea until things heated up again. Tina was screaming and crying, blood dripping from her nose, when finally, someone from the nurses' station showed up. Wendy was shouting about calling the cops, hands on her hips. I rushed over, holding a bag of food, sweat dripping from my forehead. Where the hell were you while your wife was getting beaten up? Wendy hissed. Stuffing your face, you pig. I ignored her and checked on Tina, who was clutching at her wounds and crying but not saying a word. When the idea of calling the cops got tossed around, she quickly resisted, but both of us knew the police had to be called. Intentional assault wasn't something to let slide without compensation. Wendy perked up at the mention of money and called the police without hesitation. By the time the cops showed up, Tina's wounds had been treated. While she stammered through her statement, Wendy had no problem accusing Lily of wrongly claiming Tina was a mistress and attacking her. The drama quickly spread through the hospital wing. Lily, now pumped up again, was wisely held back by her family. False accusation? She countered, pulling out her phone to show the police the video proof. Embarrassing sounds streamed from the phone, the kind that made everyone's face flush with embarrassment. The young officers gave up on figuring out if it was really Tina, just handing the phone back and saying, mistress or not, you can't just beat someone up like that. Lily, from her educated background, understood this, staying silent but fueling Wendy's fire. See? You know you're wrong. You'll need to cough up 70 or 80 grand or this isn't over. Tina stood there pale as a ghost, knowing very well it was her in the video. Some bystanders had a peek at the video too, their looks evolving from confusion to mocking in seconds. Public shame hit hard and fast. Tina suddenly snapped and bolted for Eric's hospital room. Eric was pretending to be asleep, a scared man lying in bed, but seeing Tina rush in, he couldn't even muster a word. Eric, say something, Tina shouted, trying to yank the blanket off him, but Eric wasn't having it. I stood at the door, watching the chaos like it was a sad soap opera, then turned and left. A cold smile briefly crossed my face. Tina couldn't face staying in the hospital anymore and checked out later that day. I went to work as usual, keeping my hours long and unpredictable, giving them all the time they needed to act. At first, her mother would play cool, ignoring me like I was invisible, but then one day she suddenly got all friendly. When she started leaving me meals, warning bells went off in my head, signaling the start of some drama. Reflecting back, I asked myself repeatedly why, at such a young age, I experienced organ failure and died. In my past life, when I was an entrepreneur with luxury cars, properties, and a nice bit of cash, Wendy would stop by for chats, occasionally bringing groceries to cook meals and earn sympathy. At the time, her sudden kindness didn't ring any alarms for me, just gratitude. But while Tina was in the hospital, I had someone set up hidden cameras at home. A shift in behavior made my gut twist in suspicion, so I quickly found an excuse to leave the house. Wendy cursed as I walked out. Sitting in the car, I pulled up the home surveillance on my phone. I watched as Wendy and her daughter argued in the kitchen. How much longer are you going to drag this out? I don't have time for your drama, Wendy said. Annoyed, Tina twisted her face in anger, retaliating. You're the one doing this for your precious son, not me. Her mother sneered. None of this would have happened if you weren't caught cheating. Now I have to deal with this mess. Tina was speechless in frustration. Keep it up. With your antics, I can't rely on him anymore, Wendy yelled. Wendy was talking nonsense while adding something to the soup. I felt a chill in my heart. No wonder she rushed things. She worried I'd find out her daughter was cheating and couldn't find a sucker to support her in old age. I kept reviewing the earlier videos, trying to find some useful information. After a while, I was shocked to my core. In the video, not long after installing the cameras, Wendy brought an old man into our home. As soon as they walked in, they were all over each other. Nothing like the bossy attitude she showed us normally. They were sweet as blooming flowers. "Tom, it's been so long. Don't you miss me at all?" She playfully hit the man's chest, giggling. The man, Tom, pulled Wendy in by the waist, tilted her head up, and kissed her deeply. "How could I not think of you? I think about you every day." Then things got a bit heated. My perceptions were shattered. Infidelity seemed to run in the family. I clipped the entire video. Recalling everything from the past lifetime, I had to maximize its impact. Wendy's mom had died in a car accident, which left me in a daze for a long time. I barely remembered things until, on my deathbed, they came to pull my oxygen plug and inherit my vast estate. The kid looked about 5 or 6. Timing-wise, it's likely she conceived around this time. Her family had a big business but couldn't have kids. If it's for the child, Eric might really leave me to be with Tina. I went back home emotionlessly, continuing my ordinary life, work, home, and bringing some goodies occasionally. I was surprised that the couple who I thought I'd choose to divorce were behaving cautiously for days. Seeing me calm, they seemed relieved. Occasionally, I'd bring Tina some nutritious things, and their tails would wag with delight. At the dinner table, when Tina gagged a few times, my face turned cold. Pregnant. My tone was icy. Wendy, initially wanting to scold me for my attitude, was taken aback too. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. We'd been having good meals lately, and Wendy was worried I'd eat the good stuff, so she and Tina would sneak eats in the kitchen before I got home, leaving me leftovers. I didn't mind. Let them eat even if I feared it wasn't enough. Hearing my words, Tina got flustered. How could it be? She knew her cheating hadn't escaped me. No matter how shameless, she was feeling guilty. Get it checked. If it's a boy, Ben should come claim him soon, I mumbled, turning to leave. What kind of attitude is that? It's just sleeping with someone outside. Wash and come back. Isn't she still your wife? Wendy set down her chopsticks, her words cutting. When I mentioned Ben, it seemed like Lily's angry face popped into Tina's mind. No, it's not like that. You've got it wrong. She hurried to grab me as I was about to leave, but her explanation even she felt was weak. Maybe using too much force, another wave of gagging hit her. I stormed out, going straight to Ben's place. Bang, bang. I pounded on the door, and inside someone kept shouting, "Coming, coming." When Lily saw it was me, her face dropped. "What are you here for?" "Ben," I said. Since that mess, he got fired from the company for damaging its image, and his layoff list wasn't approved. They hadn't left their place in ages. Hearing me, Ben emerged from the back, half naked in beach shorts, his face bruised and purple. Seeing it was me, he quickly retreated to the room, but it was too late. I pushed the door open, grabbed his neck, and yanked him back. He stumbled and sat on the floor. Don't hit me, don't hit me. I know I was wrong. I won't do it again." Begging for mercy, I ignored him, continuing to drag him out. We reached our building, and I took a small megaphone I borrowed from the store. "Eric, Tina is pregnant. If you're a man, take responsibility now." Lily, who had caught up with me, just froze in place, unable to hear anything else. Lately, Eric was trying to patch things up when he realized Tina wasn't trustworthy. He left her and went home. Unexpectedly, this happened. He stood stunned. Tina's parents, protective of their daughter, had bought a marital home in the same neighborhood. Eric, the son-in-law, had benefited spending time with Tina. Tina's mother, on hearing this, rushed over and slapped her son-in-law twice. Eyes glaring wide, she declared, "You have to get divorced. Leave without taking anything." Eric's situation wasn't great, or he wouldn't have tried to grab my wealth. He had thought Lily was a pushover and believed I was deeply in love with Tina. Everything, car, house, was in her name. Realizing this made me curse inwardly. Even nice people get pushed to the edge. I hit send on the carefully prepared message on my phone. It was time to reap the rewards. Hearing the commotion, Tina came downstairs. I dragged her towards Eric, shoving her into his arms. "Ben, you dare." She glared at me, reverting back to when she thought I was submissive. I chuckled, "Today I'm hitting you." Without waiting, I slapped her twice, sending her crying into Eric's arms. Lily, not having it, pulled her away, causing her to fall back. I quickly caught her, cheekily saying, "Pregnant, right? If she miscarries, that's attempted murder." Tina looked utterly humiliated, crying harder. Following my words, Lily, as if remembering something, angrily grabbed Eric and started hitting him. We were soon surrounded by onlookers, curious folks snapping photos and recording for the internet. Cries of agony filled the air. When Owen's son showed up, this was the scene he witnessed. Owen's wife passed away, and he got a good pension. His daughter-in-law died early, he had some savings, and his grandson was about to graduate high school. It's not unusual for an older man to find companionship. But Wendy was much younger, always asking Owen for money. Never mind the cost of a twilight romance, she was married too. Once Owen's kids found this out, they weren't happy and went straight to confront her. Not being faithful runs in the family. Owen's sons, not ones to be messed with, showed off their tattoos. Wendy stood there, unfazed, despite her shaking legs. When she found out someone asked for her, she tried to slip away but was too late, pushed out of the crowd. Owen's oldest son didn't hold back, slapping her twice, making her scream. Wendy, who was always pampered, wasn't used to this treatment. She turned to me for help, but I just stood there, smiling. She realized instantly, "Ben, you brought them here." She couldn't figure out how I knew things her daughter didn't. She collapsed, crying, lamenting her fate. How could this happen to me at my age, trying to help my daughter and now shamed? When Owen's second son heard this, he pulled out his phone and opened a video. It was like the hospital scene from a few days back played out again. Everything went silent. Even Tina was wide-eyed. An older lady being so loud was shocking. Wendy turned red, tried to grab the phone but tripped, dropping it. The video kept playing, so she tried stamping on it to destroy it. But a new phone costs $1,000. Wang eyed her, asking how she'd pay. She ignored him, and Owen's sons began to beat her. Wendy couldn't fight back. Her forehead was bleeding, her arms bruised, her limbs broken. She kept begging for an ambulance. Security arrived quickly, maintained order, and sent her to the hospital. On the way to the ambulance, she turned to me, yelling, "Ben, you're heartless." I replied, "How am I heartless? Did I make you cheat? Did I make your daughter get pregnant by someone else?" I chuckled, "Good luck." Owen's sons decided to call the police. Wendy had conned Owen out of a lot of money, and now the police wanted it returned. She was stressed, having to pay back all this money. Her youngest son urged his dad to come see what's happening. When Leo arrived, Tina, pregnant, was bustling about, helping her mom. She was clinging to the hope of keeping Eric by her side with the baby, despite the chaos. Leo, confused by the scene, asked what was going on. Wendy quickly interrupted, insisting everything was fine. If Leo knew, she'd surely be in trouble. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. When Leo stormed into the hospital, Wendy knew it was over. "At your age, caught cheating, why not just die?" he lashed out, striking her. Years of hard labor made him strong, and it didn't take much for her nose to start bleeding. As if unsatisfied, he pulled out his belt, whipping Wendy repeatedly. Flirting with other men, he growled, then put his belt back on and left. I handed a cigarette to the janitor, gave a nod, and walked out. When Tina arrived, she saw her mother trembling in a corner. The hospital wanted nothing to do with them. Eric was set on divorce, acting recklessly and hanging around Tina. Lily's family had power, so Eric walked away with nothing. I remained unchanged, going to work as usual. Knowing what lay ahead helped me start a business with Mike. Eric was restless. Seeing I wasn't divorcing, he tried to repeat the past, running with Tina. Wendy stopped them, saying if they didn't help her, No one would be happy. She knew I wouldn't assist her. Tina finally came wanting a divorce. Her arrogance was gone. Okay, divorce, but you leave with nothing. I casually flipped through papers, looking at her, worn out. Why? She demanded, slamming a hand on the table. Smirking, I said, because you cheated. Because you planned murder and you're about to get some jail time. Imagine being locked up. What about your child? With both parents in jail, he can't even take civil service exams. Think he'll resent you? Stop, I'll sign. Overwhelmed by recent events, she broke down, covering her ears, screaming. She signed the papers, leaving everything behind. Watching her flat belly, I chuckled. Good luck. Once the paperwork was done, I packed her things and kicked them out. The more someone treasures something, the more you take it, the better it feels. Tina went back to their shabby apartment. Now nobody wanted Wendy. Her husband was gone, her daughter left after the divorce. She tried calling her precious son, who hung up once he heard her voice. Trying again only got a busy signal. She was utterly alone. With a 5-month pregnancy, not big, but noticeable, they couldn't let go. They went to the hospital, and hearing the diagnosis of a stillbirth left them in shock. How could it be a stillbirth? Eric staggered back to his apartment, still in a daze. He got a notification from my video surveillance. His mother-in-law had given Tina a secret potion to help her conceive. You drank the potion, Eric screamed, yanking her out of bed, completely forgetting she was pregnant. No, I didn't, Tina desperately explained. It was just a normal prenatal medicine. But Eric had lost it. He blamed her for everything, claiming she had caused harm to their child. All his bottled-up frustration was unleashed on Tina. Then he saw the blood between Tina's legs and panicked. Fearful of being accused of murder, he took her phone and locked her in the house. Help me, Tina rasped, but all she heard was the sound of the door being locked. Tina resorted to a desperate measure. She set the house on fire. When the rescue team arrived, they rushed the barely conscious Tina to the hospital. It was too late. She had to have a hysterectomy and would never be able to have children again. For Eric, a Tina who couldn't have sons meant nothing. He thought about running away, but Tina was frantically searching for him. The love and sweetness between them were gone. Tina took Eric to court. I took Tina and her mom to court too. It was all for attempted murder. On trial day, she weakly accused me. It was you, wasn't it? But no one believed her. Her mom had picked the herbs herself, ground them up, and Tina had gradually added them to the food. Every time Wendy left food for me, she included it. The evidence was undeniable. Tina couldn't talk her way out. The judge started the sentencing. Tina was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison, effective immediately. Wendy was also sentenced to 25 years for attempted murder. Eric was on the run. Her organs were failing, just like my situation before. The good luck was that, as a pregnant woman, her baby absorbed most of it. She probably never realized I had switched the concoction. Hopefully, in the next life, her child would find a better family. After they caught Eric, I visited him and told him. The son he dreamed of was killed by them. Tina and Wendy could never have come up with such a scheme. Every detail reeked of Eric's plan. Eric lost it, accusing me of being the murderer in front of everyone. The doctors had to sedate him. No, it's not related to me, I said. On the day of the car accident, the vehicle needed a maintenance check because something had accidentally dropped into it. Tina had agreed to go out with him to repair their broken relationship, preferring to travel in our car to avoid Lily's suspicion. Speeding on the highway, debris got through the oil filter, causing the car to lose control. In a sharp turn, they chose to hit the wall. Guilty and unscathed, they decided not to report it, thinking they could cover it up. Instead, it blew up. To his dying day, Eric never figured out where he went wrong, or maybe he did everything wrong. My and Mike's company grew bigger, so I quit my job to fully focus on it. Mike was the boss's son with money to spend, and I was a computer science genius who hadn't let my skills go rusty. Together, we were unstoppable compared to before. People kept trying to set me up with women, but I always said no. Maybe because I hadn't met anyone who really captivated me. Making money was more important. That was until Mike introduced me to his sister, who had just returned from studying abroad. The moment we met, I understood that loving someone isn't about always agreeing with them. It's about wanting to give them your all.